good morning, and thank you as well to IAEE and everyone on the call for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts today on how technology is extending innovation from the trade show floor to the cloud. We will also be posting these slides on SlideShare, so if you actually sign up for our newsletter as well, we will automatically include today's content in our next blast too. So we are thrilled to be here this morning. We are more than happy to take your questions throughout the webinar. You can feel free to ask Brooke and us questions through GoToMeeting, as well as join the conversation with us on Twitter using hashtag TradeShowCorner. You can also feel free to engage with us directly on Twitter. So just a few notes of who we are. Balluun is a SaaS startup that is based in Silicon Valley, California, but also with offices in New York and Zurich. We partner with trade shows and wholesale business networks by being the technology provider for them to build their own digital marketplaces that feature social networking and e-commerce capabilities. We have been fortunate to partner with partners like UBM Avenstar and the Toy Industry Association, and already have one of the largest digital B2B networks in industries as varied as fashion, toys, e-cigarettes, spa and wellness, and licensing. So I will go ahead and pass on the presentation to my colleague, Larry.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Brooke. So we're really excited to spend some time sharing our thoughts from Silicon Valley about how technology is impacting the trade show and events industry. If you take a step back and you look at how most companies market today with business-to-business commerce, you'll see there are a number of familiar channels. Not surprisingly, trade show and events are one of the biggest ones, according to Forrester research. But you'll see that more and more digital channels are emerging. It can be websites, webinars, webcasts like the one today, email blasts, blogs, or even online videos. And so certainly there's a great interest, even in this industry, to understand sort of how digital impacts these marketing efforts. Forrester has done some research on how companies are spending their budgets. And certainly in-person trade shows, these conferences, events where face-to-face is key, continue to be a major and probably the largest area where they are spending. 78% of these companies are planning on spending their program budget on events in this next year. But clearly, digital is an area where there's increasing interest and increasing spending. The same Forrester survey showed that 36% actually plan on increasing their budget in digital in 2015. And so, there's a lot of trends that are happening today. And we're going to spend some time talking about sort of four major trends we see today. The interesting thing about technology is it's really increasingly consumer-led. And so you guys will see how cloud, mobile, social commerce, they're touching our lives not only in a enterprise or business context, but also and increasingly initially from a consumer point of view. First and foremost is the rise of the cloud. With pervasive internet and whatnot, everybody is really familiar and comfortable with the idea of using the cloud for their email, like Gmail, or watching movies through Netflix and whatnot. But it's not just a consumer play. Increasingly, enterprises are using cloud-based applications like Salesforce or Google Docs, and really having the software delivered through a software as a service mechanism, rather than having things all packaged software and in the company's walls. Mobile is also certainly a major trend. Probably most of us on the call today have some sort of mobile device, whether it's an iPhone, Android smartphone, BlackBerry, or whatnot. And mobile is important for not only just your day-to-day life, but it's increasingly important from a commerce point of view. It gives the portability, basically lets you do buying and selling anytime, anywhere. And things like location-based services, GPSs, beacons, are actually helping drive sort of convergence between the physical and digital worlds. Third is social networking. I think all of us have probably a Facebook account or LinkedIn account, but really, we see that this is really transferring to the enterprise as well, with products like Yammer and Facebook for Work, where enterprises are using social networks to drive connections and communities and communication, even for business purposes. And fourth but not least is e-commerce. We've seen, people are really familiar with buying things online, whether it's through Amazon. We're seeing more social commerce plays like with Netflix and Twitter. But really, this is really extending to B2B, which is an even bigger e-commerce play. And so let me go through these 4 steps. We'll pause at the end of each section for any questions. But certainly, as Jennifer mentioned, please feel free to engage in the conversation with #TradeShowCorner. So the first area I'd like to talk about is the cloud. And I think the cloud is really a very fundamental piece that really enables to do a lot of the things that we're talking about in the next couple of slides. The cloud, if you're asking, what it is, I think CNN and Money did a great job of really explaining what it is. And it's really all about delivering software and services on your internet instead of your computer. Versus like 10, 20 years ago where software meant buying a box from, Software Etc. or Egghead Software or whatever. More and more software is actually running on the internet in the cloud. Things like iCloud, Dropbox, Google Drive, these are all cloud services. And cloud services basically have a lot of benefits in terms of manageability and accessibility. And this has really been possible recently because of the pervasiveness of high-speed broadband internet. When you look at what digital and cloud does for trade shows, there are a number of benefits. Ultimately, it lets you aggregate your supply and demand and not really be limited by geographic borders. The economies of scale it generates lets you reduce transaction costs while at the same time opening up new profit opportunities for you. And ultimately, it really enables people to access information not only 365 days a year, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And from a trade show point of view, digital not only provides these conveniences and saves costs, but it lets you open up new revenue streams. It helps trade show organizers become digital service providers. It could be things like subscriptions to a marketplace, online advertising, premium services, or even e-commerce transactions. Now at Balluun, we have a number of trade show resources that we power through the cloud. It includes, Balluun Directory, which is a directory of all the trade shows around the world, to individual marketplaces for specific trade shows. And in particular, we'll talk about 2 examples. We did a domain called Shop the Floor for Advanstar Global. And this is really a fashion-based network that's really powered in the cloud. Whereas Toy Industry Association, they're the providers of the American International Toy Fair. They created a domain called shoptoyfair365.com. And the great part for them is because they had a cloud-based software, it's very easy for them to reach their thousands and thousands of exhibitors and attendees. So if you take a step back and look at cloud software, really the key benefit for cloud software is its high adoption. What this means is, you can really access your domain or your application from any computer or any device, as long as you have an internet connection. Cloud software also has the benefit of lower initial costs. Because they are subscription-based, you really end up usually paying a lower monthly fee versus just a large license fee to buy the software. And third, because the software is all in the cloud, you don't have to worry about patches or updates. This is all managed by your SaaS provider. And lastly, cloud software really allows integration to help scale with growth. And with an architecture where you can integrate it with different APIs, you can easily connect it to other systems like your accounting system, your CRM system like Salesforce, or your ERP system to manage your inventory and whatnot. And so when people think about cloud and SaaS, really it's oftentimes a question of whether you want to build your own, custom deployment, or basically rent software as a service. The benefit of creating your own software is obviously you can customize it to your needs. But it does require a longer term commitment where you need to be the product manager, you need to be the engineer, you need to be technical support for it. And we think it's more akin to building your own exhibition hall. With cloud-based software as a service, this is going to be easier and quicker to implement, and you don't need to worry about hosting or deploying or managing. And it's much more akin to renting an exhibition space for an event. And so when you look at cloud partners, there's a lot of technical and business criteria to consider. One is, the manageability and support of the team, what kind of analytics and reporting can be done, and really what does the overall technical architecture look like. From the business point of view, it's worth looking at, what is the total cost of ownership, what is the time to market, and what kind of risks are there. And so, with Balluun 365, we believe that the benefits of software as a service include that, we as a software service provider, we are responsible for providing secure data hosting and the management domain. We provide continuous updates for your digital marketplace. And, we staff it to provide your all the support. And so this means that, the trade show operator doesn't need to have a customer support person, doesn't need to have an engineer, doesn't have an IT benefit. And this is, I think, true of really any SaaS software provider. And so, if you want to learn a little bit more about any of these digital marketplaces, we have a number of videos on YouTube that you're more than welcome to enjoy and understand, what Shop the Floor is, what Toy Fair is, or as well as what Balluun is. And so let me pause for a second here before we go to our next section. I don't know, Brooke or Jennifer, if you guys have any initial questions or comments.
Hi, Larry. This is Brooke. At this time, right now, we do not have any questions.
Great. Well, let us continue for the second section then. And next, we're going to talk a little bit more about mobile. And so, most people are probably aware by now that mobile is really dominating internet usage today. Mobile devices, using your smartphone like your iPhone or Android phone, these devices account for over half of the internet usage in the US. A lot of it comes from apps, but some of it comes from browsers as well. But you see, this is not just about people playing games or reading the internet. If you look at some of the top e-commerce sites like Amazon, eBay, Walmart, Best Buy, Target, in each of these different domains, you'll see that there's actually more mobile visits than desktop visits for the majority of them. And mobile is going to be really huge in terms of what it means for e-commerce and the internet. Revenue from the mobile internet will top $700 billion every year by 2017. And if you look at, there's a number of players out there that are really helping to drive this growth. In our world, the startup world, there's already 68 mobile technology startups that are worth over $1 billion. But if you look at what mobile means for trade shows, they're already a big part of the trade show experience. Probably everybody on the trade show floor has a tablet, a phone, or a camera. But if you look at even the in-booth experience, RFID and NFC to sort of help identify products or even identify the attendees are a key way of interacting between exhibitors and attendees. QR codes are a great way for people to find information very quickly on their device. And more you're seeing people use iBeacons, which basically are these location-based sensors that will notify you on your smartphone whenever you're near something of interest. It could be coupons, it could be special promotions. But ultimately, you see mobile is driving usages as varied as communicating between partners, as a calendaring or a preparation device, to find booth through maps or information, or even to present information or take orders. Balluun, companies like New Order, Jor, a lot of them are used as mobile order taking applications on the showroom floor. And in particular, we think mobile commerce is a really big piece of this equation. Having mobile optimized sales and faster speeds are a big reason why mobile has grown in the last year. And 9 out of 10 mobile searches lead to action, and over half of them lead to purchase. The couple comments that we want to mention about mobile is, mobile is not just about shrinking down your screen so it fits from your PC down to your device. One big consideration for mobile, from a web page point of view, is to really build in responsive design principles. And what this means is that, rather than just having a shrink down exact same version of your web page on your smaller screen, you basically have the content flow and be really dynamic. And so, for example, if you look at the Balluun web page, we've employed responsive design techniques from our web page. So if you look at it from a PC, you'll see much fuller pictures and much broader text. But when it gets shrink down to a smaller screen, the page will automatically and dynamically reflow the content, so it is much more interactive on your mobile device. But beyond just having a responsive device, responsive design, to really generate a great mobile experience, you're seeing more and more companies create mobile-first experiences. And so what this means is, really generating a rich, interactive experience that was, designed from the beginning for a tablet or a phone. And so this will do things like, be optimized for touch. It will oftentimes take advantage of using large images, make it very graphical and less text-based. But ultimately, beyond just having your website or your application accessible from your mobile device, it's really important to deliver a compelling user experience on your mobile device. And so before I continue on and talk a little bit more about social and commerce, just a reminder to please feel free to engage with us at #TradeShowCorner, as well as take a look at balluun.com/IAEE for our newsletter to get this content.
Hi Larry, this is Brooke. We have a quick question.
Yes.
The question is, what is NFC?
I'm not familiar with that. Was that something that you saw on our slide, Tina? Oh, NFC, got it. Yeah, NFC means near field communication. And so essentially, it's basically a way of communicating between devices. So you can imagine like Wi-Fi or 3G and 4G, that's a way to communicate from very far away. NFC is what's called near field. And so the idea is like if you know what Apple Pay is, or if you look at devices where you basically take your iPhone and you put it up against a sensor. It is transferring the information wirelessly between the two things without needing to plug it in and without needing to type in any passwords. And so the best example of NFC is really Apple Pay.
Thanks, Larry. We have another question.
Sure.
What does RFID stand for?
Sure. RFID is also a similar kind of technology. What trade shows will do a lot of times is RFID stands for radio frequency identification. And so oftentimes this will be like a little chip that a trade show or whatnot will put in someone's badge. And so this is a quick and easy way for people to sort of track the traffic across the whole trade show floor or even within an individual booth. And so it basically uses radio frequencies. So it's a wireless technology, similar to Wi-Fi or similar to NFC, but it's basically a little bit longer range. Like you don't have to actually touch the device; you can sense it from far away. And so RFID is used in things like shipping and logistics, where boxes, as they go through a conveyor belt or a shipping and logistics center, this is a great way to sort of track where packages are.
Wonderful. Thank you, Larry.
No, you're welcome. So let's spend some time talking about social. And I think social is really key when you look at trade shows. If you look at why people participate in trade shows, this is from B2B magazine. It's about generating leads, engaging customers, building the brand, etc. And these are all very, very social aspects. I mean, it's face-to-face social versus what people think of when they think of social networking versus Facebook or LinkedIn. But ultimately, we think, it's all with a common purpose or benefit. And if you look at, why social is important, number one, it's clear that social is huge. Within 5 years, sales versus social commerce is expected to reach $30 billion. And shoppers, 750 million people follow brands online. 49% use social media to stay abreast of the latest industry news and best practices. And 9 to 10, people, buyers will say they'll contact their sellers when they're ready to buy. But the challenge with social is, if you've ever been spammed on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, one of the key challenges is breaking through the noise. 40% of accounts and 8% of messages on social media sites today are actually spam. And so what we want to talk about is, how does social networking help commerce? Customers definitely prefer a catered buying experience, and their buying decisions are really influenced by social media. And you sort of see, social is really aspect, that there's a big difference in terms of getting a message from your peers versus a message from, the general internet. 90% of consumers trust peer recommendations, but only 14% trust advertisements. So it's really important to sort of use social as a way to sort of, basically provide, credibility as part of the selling experience. And beyond that, social is key because if you look at why do people go to trade shows, this is really what social networking should be from a digital point of view. Social networking should help you build meaningful relationships. It should help you remain on top of industry news and best practices. And it should really help you, generate content ideas, be more productive, or increase efficiency by reaching the right buyers and sellers. And what you see today is, people all know about like Facebook or LinkedIn. People think about Facebook as sort of your personal life social network, and LinkedIn is your work life social network. But increasingly, you're seeing a lot more specialized and focused social networks. There are a number of social networks that are really built for specific communities, like AngelList is for startups, Kaggle is for data scientists, Doximity is for doctors, or Piazza is for academics. And so the benefit about doing this is, you can sort of cut down on a lot of the spam, a lot of the noise, and really connect with the people who are relevant to you and participate in conversations that are relevant to you. And so, that's why we think social is specifically for trade show makes a lot of sense. Certainly Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, these will continue to be important social channels, but we think focused channels specifically for trade show exhibitors and attendees will really help them build more meaningful relationships by finding the right touch points between buyers and sellers. It also lets you give the general benefits of social, where you can increase your exposure to new geographies and not be limited to just the 3 days of the event. And certainly, it's a great way to sort of stay engaged all year round, 365 days a year. Even before or after an event, you can promote your product, you can get feedback, and you can basically be accessible, from any time, from anywhere. And from a seller point of view, from an exhibitor point of view, social networking provides sellers with a lot more data to not only increase efficiency in their business, but even to generate new leads. Having a digital presence allows you to generate much more specific reports from based on traffic, based on clicks. Social makes it easy for you to filter based on your requirements. You can search by your industry, you can search by product, you can search by title. And ultimately, the benefit of social allows for smarter lead generation. Not only does this mean you can search for the right people, right products, but you can basically really allocate your resources from a marketing point of view to provide only the exact relevant information to the exact people who are important to you. And so this means rather than spending time for a broad-based campaign, you can basically focus on an event. And to give you a personal example based on our experience with Balluun, we take a very multi-channel approach. And so we use digital, we use print, and we use events. And so we've done things like spent thousands of dollars on Google AdWords campaigns, where you basically go out and try to tell the whole world about our platform for trade shows. But at the same time, what we found to be one of the most effective things we ever did was actually participating at Expo by IAEE. And the good part is, rather than try to sell something to the whole world, we have a curated audience who we know are the trade show operators and organizers who are the partners that we work with. And so rather than reach a random person who may not be affiliated with the trade show industry, you can really approach the networks that are most relevant to you. And ultimately, that's what the power of social networking is. And if you look at social networking even versus other digital methods, LinkedIn did some research and they found that connecting on social networking outpulls email and phone calls by a 7-to-1 ratio. And it's even as simple as sending a message, a private message on LinkedIn versus sending the exact same message from a text point of view on email had a 300% better response rate. And so this sort of shows that not all channels, not all methods are created equal. And so having a domain where you know the list is particularly relevant to you, it's going to sort of help you increase your efficiency. Now, if you look at what Balluun does specifically from a social point of view, we've really taken a social architecture as we built our platform. And so there's a lot of marketplace platforms where they can build out, product showrooms and whatnot. And they're certainly great. But, by providing profiles at both the company and user level, it really allows you to do a lot of things really nicely. The nice part is, you can use this as sort of a method to enhance and extend your trade show experience. With a Balluun 365 show, everybody that you meet, in person at the show can be on the platform. And so you can basically build connections after the fact, or even do research before the event and study both the persons as well as the companies through the profile. And this really allows you to do business connectivity at both levels. What we also believe at Balluun is that we think that it's important to integrate social data from a lot of different sources. We can automatically populate the information from Twitter, you can have videos from YouTube, you can comment and like and provide feedback. But ultimately, this provides a much more curated experience. The other good thing about having for example, your product catalog online is you can be sure who they are before you give access to them. If you look at Shop the Floor, for example, only people who attend the event are allowed access to the website. And so this way, people know that everybody here is with the fashion industry. And the other part is because you know whether they're an exhibitor or they're an attendee, you can provide them with different levels of access. As an exhibitor, you may be a little gun shy about showing your latest collection to a competitor. And so you can basically provide a different level of access to other exhibitors versus people who are to be genuine buyers. And like I said, this provides the sort of this validation and credibility for everybody on the system that it's not just some random person who wants to see your latest designs and copy them. So, Brooke, let me pause here for a second. Are there any questions about the social piece?
We do. We have a couple of questions. The first
Sure.
one is, we've all heard numerous times how social media increases leads. But can you give an example, and maybe an example specifically regarding a scientific association trade show? Or any example on social media increasing the leads?
Sure. Well, I think, there's two ways I would answer this question. I think the first thing I would say is the good part about having like a social network that's built around a trade show is that everybody on there, is a credible, validated user. But it also, if you are there only for 3 days, you might have a chance to, talk to or meet everybody at the event. And so having, a social network allows you to engage, connect, and communicate, before, during, and after the trade show event. And so even though it might be the same universe of people, this basically is a great way for you to sort of, extend your engagement with them. Having, access to digital data also lets you see who visited your site, where do they come from, what are they interested in. And again, I think it's really about providing, better quality to the kind of leads that you have. The last thing I would say is beyond just increasing the pure number of leads, I think that's one metric, but another metric is sort of looking at what percentage is relevant and what percentage of leads really converts to an opportunity. And so I think it's really key to look at not only just the raw numbers, but really look at relatively, are these going to be better leads for you? And so back to the question around the social scientific community. One thing I think an environment could do there is like even for a social community, you can build out a community, for example, on Balluun or build your own platform where maybe you don't worry about the products or the commerce perspective, but basically creating companies, creating individual user accounts. This really allows you to sort of engage with your colleagues in a specific domain, just like with Kaggle and Quora and the different focused social networks I mentioned before. Having a really specific community helps you really know that these are more likely to be relevant leads to you versus spam or fake accounts.
Perfect. Thank you. We have another question. What is your objective with the Balluun directory? And are there other shows included?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately...
I'm sorry. And how are the shows included?
Sure. So Balluun directory, our goal is to basically capture every event, trade show, conference that's out there. It's absolutely free to be included on the Balluun directory. And if you just go to directory.balluun.com, you can basically contact us, or you can email us at support@balluun.com. Ultimately, we see Balluun directory as more of a resource for the exhibitors and the attendees to find shows, and it's really a marketing channel or an information channel for trade show operators and organizers to let people find their event. The good part is with Balluun directory we're very active with SEO optimization as well as social media posts on Twitter and whatnot. That this really helps people find the events that they're looking for, and really I think it's sort of a gateway. It's a starting point for people to go to digital. Balluun directory, I think you could think of it almost like a Yellow Pages or a Yelp for trade shows, where it's really helping with the discovery part of the equation.
Great. And one last question. Have you created or seen a trade show app or technology
Sure.
that allows exhibitors and attendees to sync their LinkedIn or social media account to find existing connections at the event?
That's definitely a very interesting question. It's not something that I think I have seen firsthand, but I think it's something that we might want to look at ourselves from a platform point of view. As I mentioned, currently our architecture integrates directly with Twitter and YouTube, and that might be something worth looking at in the future. But I think that's definitely a great idea. The other thing we should mention is with our with social profile pages that we have for both the companies and the individuals, it's very possible to provide contact information. And so I think for example, this could be sort of a portal to find someone and then access to LinkedIn through there. But I think that's definitely a great opportunity for us.
Great. And Carol says that Presto Match does do that.
Okay, no, that's great. Yeah, I know there's a lot of really interesting technologies out there. I don't know that I've seen anything specific for the trade show industry, but yeah, I know like a few years ago there's an app called Bump where you can sort of share your contact information, and like Evernote, I think their Hello app, links their business card to LinkedIn. But what I've seen tends to be more specifically more like contact based, where you meet someone and you exchange information, then versus being part of a social network or part of a trade show community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Larry. That's all we have for that.
Great. So let's continue to our last section, which is really on e-commerce. And so, there's tons of data about how e-commerce is a huge area. I think people think e-commerce is big because they think of Amazon or they think of sites like that where Target and Walmart. And it is big. Total retail, for example, in the U.S. is expected to grow by 4%. E-commerce is expected to be by almost 4 times that, 14.2%. And B2B e-commerce today is actually a $1 trillion industry. This is almost 4 times what B2C e-commerce is. A lot of the reasons for B2B e-commerce is you have a lot of really large transactions where you might be dealing with like farm equipment or manufacturing equipment, where it's really big ticket items. But you also have a lot of recurring orders, which is a one-time order. And this is the reason why B2B e-commerce is expected to grow at a rate of almost 20% a year. The other key thing is, overall buyers tend to like digital. 43% said they prefer to shop online, and 29% said they made their last purchase online. And so really, when you look at why is e-commerce beneficial, ultimately, it's because, the store never closes with digital. Your company information, your product information, it can be available 24/7, 365 days. And you don't have to just be physically located at the storefront. You can access this information anywhere through the web or through a mobile application. This is really good when you think about it in the context of trade shows, where beyond the 3 or 4 days of an event, you can now sell or transact before, during, and after the event. Digital also has a lot of benefits where you can minimize the errors versus pen and paper. And you could, integrate this with your ERP or CRM system to really be able to track your business in real time. You can know exactly, what the status of your customer's last order was, what your inventory looks like. It basically lets you know what your business is like 24/7. To talk about, what do we envision e-commerce to look like? What Balluun has done is we've taken an approach where we allow brands to build their own storefronts within a trade show domain. And so, for example, here you see a page from Jill Stewart, who is an exhibitor at the Magic Show. And you can see here that it's very easy to provide product information, pictures. You can provide both the wholesale and suggested retail price, as well as organize this in different categories. Like for toys, it could be action figures and bicycles and games. For fashion, it could be like pants or skirts or accessories. Ultimately, it's a very beautiful, very easy way for buyers to look at your product with no pressure. And as a seller, not only does this facilitate orders, in the middle of the night after an event, but you can also get analytics in terms of who's visiting, what's most interesting to them, as well as provide your messaging to the information. And so here's, for example, an example of one specific product. And you can see it's very similar to a consumer experience. And I think, even though B2B e-commerce is a huge market, one area where it's lacking B2C commerce is really having very simple, very interactive content. And you can see here, it's very easy to order different product sizes, colors, add it to your cart. You can make this available certain times of year, have different pricing options based on volume. But ultimately, it's a very easy way to showcase the product. But beyond simply showing the product, e-commerce, I think, is really about how do you help digitally create purchase orders and even transact online. And so again, rather than filling out a piece of paper, carbon paper or whatnot, you can do all this digitally, where it's an update automatically. You can put in the billing address, shipping address. All of this is really automated, and you can choose different payment methods. It could be COD, it could be based on check, it could be with a credit card. It's a really flexible way to transact very error-free and very, very quickly. And so let me pause here real quick, Brooke, see if there's any questions specifically about e-commerce.
We don't have any at this time.
Great. Well, again, just to sort of wrap up, we really want to say thank you to IAEE for having us today. And like I mentioned, all the content today will be available if you sign up at balluun.com/IAEE. But to really summarize, our thoughts today about what is a digital solution that can help extend innovation from the trade show floor to the cloud, we think there's really 4 key pillars. First and foremost, we think digital should enhance and extend the trade show experience. Contrast this with replacing an event with a virtual show. A lot of providers, many of them may have been startups here in the Bay Area. They don't go in there with solutions that want to completely replace the event with a virtual event. And that's not our philosophy. We believe this trade show and event is such an important part of B2B marketing, and we really want to embrace that and make it better. A technology solution really needs to have robust simplicity and really focused user experience. This is what we think about when we create our mobile-first and responsive design apps, and really try to put our content at the trade show content at the center of the experience versus the application. A digital solution should really not just automate things, but help people connect and communicate. But it has to do it in a very scalable manner. And last is, we really need to integrate this as part of the wholesale process. The goal of digital should not be to replace or change the workflows of the buyers and exhibitors and sellers and attendees of trade shows, but really integrate with that process and make it as smooth as possible. So let me turn it back over to Jennifer with a couple of final thoughts before we go back with any final questions.
Thank you, Larry. So as you can see, once again, as Larry discussed, we will be showcasing the slide on SlideShare, as well as if you visit Balluun, and that's 1l.com/IAEE to sign up for our trade show industry news, insights, and also latest product updates. And then if you want to go ahead and also follow us on the social media, we are active on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, YouTube, and you can also email us at marketing@balluun.com if you have any questions, as well as look at our resources page, which will have all the information that you need. And we are excited to always obviously engage in the conversations around trade shows and learn a little bit more from each other.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. And again, thank you all for joining us. We'd love to continue the conversation with you through #TradeShowCorner or via our social platforms. We're actually going to be doing a webinar ourselves next month that sort of talks about how people tend to market these digital digital marketplaces with email, with social, and as well as even with events themselves. And so, again, thank you very much to Brooke and IAEE. We really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and share some of our thoughts about how technology is exciting innovation from the trade show floor.